You are now listening
You are now listening to the Black Male Educators Alliance podcast.
Lifting our voices.
Lifting our voices.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back. BMEA Lifting Our Voices, a BMEA podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Jerry. You see Mike, Brandon, and Chris. Gentlemen, how we doing? Mike, you can kick us out. How you doing?
Hey, feliz Cinco de Mayo. Buenos días. Buenos noches. ¿Cómo estás, mi gentes? I'm feeling good, man. I wish it was a little bit warmer, but I'm not going to complain. It is warmer than it was before, so excited for the summer, man. How you guys doing? How you doing, Brandon?
Oh, man, I'm chilling, man. I wish I could speak it like you, my brother. Good to see y'all boys. Glad to be in company with y'all fellas. What's up, Chris?
Yo, glad to have you on here, Brandon. I know he's working it out behind the scenes, getting situated, got my bro together. Now I'm doing well. Just busy weekend ahead. My son's birthday. Also Mother's Day, of course. So, just chilling, waiting for the weather to break. It's I don't know about y'all, but I'm still turning the heat on in the car and
in the morning.
Yeah, in the morning, you gotta watch it. And by that time the sun get out in the afternoon, it'd be a little too hot. But definitely in the morning.
If anybody in Michigan looks at the forecast for next week, it's coming. That's 80. It's coming next week. That's what they say. So Brandon, what's new with BMEA?
Nothing much, man. We're still continuing with our regular programming. The Principal Wellness PLC, their last session is this weekend, so we're excited about that. Just for them to close it out, but that's not it. We're going to continue working with our leaders, and also with the early career teaching fellows. We're going to continue our last session this month as well, in addition to some social events and just some check-ins, seeing what's up with the crew. And that's it as it pertains to programming. Mike, you got anything?
Listen, man, all I'm looking forward to is our fellowship barbecue, man. It's always a good time. So, Jerry, Chris, make sure y'all get ready. Get y'all dad has together. Maybe we're gonna get on that grill.
Who's grilling?
Well, it's gonna be at Lane's house, but I don't have no problem getting on the grill.
Okay.
And get together.
I think the tradition is whoever's house it is, that's who's on the grill. But Mike held us down last year, so I might throw him a couple ones to maintain his position. You feel me?
We appreciate the generosity. And look, I know, Mike, you kicked us off with the Cinco de Mayo, but I don't think we've given enough credit to the fact that it's May, right? And in this particular school year, that means a whole lot more than it usually does.
Mm-hmm.
So does what I'm about to say. It's Teacher Appreciation Week.
It is.
So we want to send a shout out to all of our educators that are doing the work, and we understand that extends beyond the classroom. But a real special shout out to all of our educators. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week on behalf of BMEA.
Yes, sir. And I also want to just shout out our early career teaching fellows. We've appreciate their efforts, being new in the profession, putting in the work. You've seen some of these people on the show, Deja, also Marcus, got Jason on there, Mike, and also LaShawn. Shout out to Marcus too. He just got married 2 weeks ago. They was looking real fly. So, happy Teacher Appreciation Week to all the fellows, all the educators. We appreciate you.
Yeah, no doubt, definitely. And May is also Male Mental Health Month. So, definitely this year has been rough on everyone, but definitely in education. We knew coming off of the virtual year that it was going to be tough, but I don't think, there's no way to prepare for, the transition the way it was. So I try to remind people that we knew it was going to be rough, so not to be too hard on themselves, to give themselves some grace. So hopefully people are prioritizing their mental health this month for sure. And, looking forward to the summer where we get some wellness and rest.
Well, Mike, I think it's time for hot topics. You want to kick us off?
Yeah. So first off, Lane, I don't know how you feeling about those Sixers.
Oh yeah.
I know that wasn't on the docket. I'm sorry, but you want to do some sports in there.
Up 30 in the fourth, and you break your face, and you're out for and just indefinitely. I guess that's tough, Lane. Sorry about that.
He playing. He playing in game 3. He playing in game 3. We good.
What's up with James Harden, man? I mean, people used to talk about
He's done.
the best scorer since Kobe and all that, talking all that nonsense and all this.
Hey
guy.
man, he didn't play more games than LeBron, more games than Mike, more games than Iverson, bro.
Man, it's not an attendance competition.
What?
It's about how
he's
you
older.
showing up.
Hey, what did you just say?
Yeah, man, look at the stats, man. Dude has more minutes in game basketball, although he doesn't have the years. It's crazy. It's some type of stat. I'll send it to you, man.
You know it's bad when they got to go to the attendance record. We talking playoffs. You got to go to attendance.
He's lost a step. I mean, he's older. He just can't play like he was.
It
not
went like this. It went like this.
Do y'all think he won? So who won the trade? And then at the end of the day,
we did. Ben Simmons won't shoot the ball.
Well, I mean, we don't know. Look, happy mental health awareness month. We don't want to dig too far deep into what Ben Simmons got.
We can go.
So we'll leave it alone. Let's get to the hot topic for real now, Mike.
Yeah. So first up, man, Michigan State University. I know Chris gonna say go green. Won't require ACT or SAT scores for the next 5 years. That's real big for our seniors, and upcoming seniors.
No, we put this in the group chat. We're gonna keep it all the way real. Jerry. We're gonna keep it all the way real. I was hyped. I'm like, look at Michigan State being leaders. But Jerry, if I recall, he said, "Man, college is a scam," and he said,
look.
Just let's know what you feeling.
Clarify what I mean by that.
Yeah, please.
I think that maybe for everybody, for all intents and purposes, college still provides avenues for people to access great opportunities in their life. And if it's a great fit for you, who am I to tell you what to do? Everybody should go follow their own path. What I mean by that, though, is it's very interesting that coming out of the pandemic, all of a sudden, all of these things that stopped access or didn't create access, that were barriers, are no longer necessary in order to access college, right? And you think about the fact that, I mean, at the end of the day, colleges are businesses. They charge tuition for their services. And so when you lessen minimize the barriers, you create more access, you're still asking people to pay the money, right? Mm-hmm. And so right now they need more people to pay the money. And so we don't need to put so much in the way of getting them to the campus, right? And so that's how I read that. And we can have that conversation if people want to. But really, at the end of the day, it's a supply and demand thing is how I see it.
Yeah, and I also believe that like the chokehold that the College Board and SAT had on education was that like this SAT was going to let you get into these top colleges, and then people of color, it was going to be opportunity for you to get scholarships. And so much was riding on this SAT that it felt like it was like a necessary evil of like your educational journey. But all it really means when we take the SAT away is that colleges need to start looking at like how do we evaluate student success and like students who will be successful in their college. And I don't think the SAT scores is necessarily like the one determining factor on one, the student success, or two, like whether or not they are going to benefit the college and whatnot. And I honestly think that they just didn't want to have to deal with all those bad scores and still accepting kids. So you're better off just taking the test off, and then start thinking about new ways to evaluate students, which now gives opportunities for high schools to think of new ways that we can teach, because now we're not teaching to the SAT anymore, right? Where math, arithmetic, and English were the focus of schools, almost down to the point where everything's about test taking. Now we can start really building up, students to be independent thinkers, critical thinkers, and really lean into whatever their strengths are to find their own success. So I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's early to make a huge judgment on it. I mean, I welcome it because we know that historically tests have not served students of color. But I'm actually looking into the article, and it's a few interesting stats that they bring up. They actually say that their applications, they actually get more applications as of late, which I mean the last couple of years. But then also, if you look at like just the profile of their students, Well, I mean, before I get to the profile, one thing they said they're looking at doing from a university standpoint is tracking not just retention, but ultimately graduation rates. So, of course, this is going to be something that they'll have to engage in over a number of years to really see if it's an effective practice. So I think it's just going to be interesting to see, because even if you look at like the average GPA of freshmen who came in fall 2021 was somewhere between 3.5 and 4.0. And for those who did take the test, the ACT was between 23 and 29, and SAT scores are between 1,100 and 1,310. So I guess my thing is, like, I want to know a little bit more about what they're using to actually decide to admit a student. Obviously, we know that some students that get admitted won't, be within that range, but like, what's those determining factors, and ultimately how are they just supporting students when they get there to make sure they do actually matriculate and graduate, So I welcome it, but I think with everything, we know as getting accepted to college is one thing, but also progressing and finishing is another. And I think we have to show that commitment, not just on like lowering some expectation on how to get in, but also making sure people actually finish and not just leaving school with a bunch of debt and no degree, or degree in a job that's not really going to pay you enough.
But that is it. They're inviting more people to get into debt, right? By lowering the standard, right? And while in my opinion, some of these folks don't care, right? We just need the people to come in with the money, and then if they don't finish, because if you don't change anything that goes on at some of these institutions in terms of how you deliver the instruction and all of that, like you're still have the same issue on the back end, which is how do you get them to graduate, right? So it's just sort of feels like we're setting up people for more failure, right? So, and what was that last comment? Can you pull that right back up there?
Yeah. We got Doc in the comments. He's we may have to pull him on as special guest. Now he got a lot to say on this topic.
Come on.
No, it's all good. All right. Next topic. What we got, Mike? I mean, I don't know. We got Brandon back. I'm sorry, Brandon was kind of back. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah. I guess for me, I'm cool with it. I think it's good. I've seen mixed research, right? Some research says ACT, SAT are strong predictors for life success, really college success, right? But not necessarily life success. Some says it is. With the test anxiety, et cetera, I'm really interested to seeing some of the research where I guess we were talking about if enrollment is increasing and if matriculation is increasing, and just the quality of student experience. Like, if this leads to an increase in quality of experience, I like that. But there are other factors that contribute to what students' experience is like when they get to college. So we'll see. I don't want to lower standards for Black children in any way, shape, or form. You know what I'm saying? But I also don't want it to be an invitation into debt. I would really prefer if our education system promoted a lot of failure early on, especially in high school, and really put students in position to mature so that when they decided to go to college, they'd be ready for the choice and understanding the financial burden. And I don't think you can really understand that financial burden if you don't have like real responsibilities in your life. So I'm excited for the positive outcomes that it can have for our children, all children, et cetera, but we'll see. I got mixed feelings at the moment.
That was beautiful, Lane.
Yeah, I definitely think that we can have a whole podcast on the idea around college. So, make sure Lane puts that in the docket for next moving forward. All right. So next up, man, we have Michigan bills will de-emphasize test scores to account for pandemic disruption. So just along the same lines, Chalk beat Detroit. They had just announced that standardized test scores won't be a factor in this year's educator evaluations or decisions about whether or not third graders be able to be promoted to fourth grade, based upon all that's happened with the COVID crisis of virtual learning. Tell me how you guys feel about that.
I feel good about it. Like, simple example. My son, this is not related to reading, but my son is in second grade, my oldest son, going on a field trip to Belle Isle next week, right? Super excited. And I was talking with one of my colleagues today. I was like, man, you know what? I don't think he's been on a field trip, you know, with school since kindergarten year. You know what I mean? And that was early. I think they may went on one trip. So like just that he's super excited about learning with his friends out in the real world and nature and things like that. So when it comes down to things like, you know, third grade reading law, like there was some consequences of students having their learning environments disrupted. And I do think that it would be, you know, ridiculous that you want to hold teachers to the same standard and possibly even retain students based off of their scores on these assessments that haven't changed yet. We know that the last, you know, 2 years, even to this day, I mean, we still have COVID outbreaks happening in schools here in the city now, yet we keeping that same expectation that was in some ways questionable. So I support them. I hope that they actually get passed. But also, like, I think something that Lane said before, it's not about lowering like expectations on what we believe kids can do, but it's about just being aware of the current situation. It's about being realistic. And you know, that's my thought on that.
Yeah, I agree, especially around the teacher evaluation aspect. I mean, if there's something that was out of their control that is going to have a negative influence on their evaluation, I think we should try to address that. And I think if this is the heart and spirit of that, I think that's great. I really do. Mike, what you thinking? Or Jerry?
My bad, Mike. I agree with Lane. Obviously, we don't need to penalize people for things that are out of their control, right? I think we could have another show about some of this stuff in and of itself too, right, Lane? So you can put that on the docket too. But you know, if it is creating empathy for a moment while we're in this, right? It's not the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, no, I think that how COVID impacted people differently, just making things more equitable. These standardized tests are just, the results are going to impact certain communities more than others. And so we just want to be more equitable. That's all. Yeah, so I support it.
Oh, that was easy. That was good.
Yeah, we all agreed on that. Next thing I want to get into, we had a Black male educator, Mr. Kurt Russell, was named Teacher of the Year, National Teacher of the Year. We want to give him a shout out. We also want to watch this quick video.
Good morning. Mr. Russell is such an incredible teacher and person in general. He's really active when he teaches, like very expressive.
Are you sure? You positive? It's like he commands like your attention.
He's just really enthusiastic and he relates his curriculum to real world experiences.
Marcus Garvey is saying the same thing.
You walk in there and it's just lesson the whole time.
He wants us to truly engage with one another and embrace new ideas.
On this side say yes, on this side say no.
Mr. Russell always strives for every student to succeed in this classroom.
He really opens your mind.
The biggest lesson I've learned from him is to confront the uncomfortable.
Kurt, we're so very proud of you. You're changing lives. You're motivating young people each and every day. And we are so blessed and proud.
Shout out.
I'm not gonna lie, that young man sounds a lot like me, man. So I'm proud of him.
Yeah, man.
Hey, you see my man Christian says that sound like what we do on the daily. So hey,
Well,
maybe,
so can
I think alike, I guess. I don't know.
Let me share what I was thinking. I was like, so is this like the equivalent to like winning MVP, right, in the league? Like, is this the equivalent? But then you think about how many teachers there are, right? So I always wonder when I see stuff like, you know, Teacher of the Year, and shout out to my guy, like shout out, right? But how do we get there, right? Like, how do we get to one person out of this whole fleet of folks, right? Anybody got any ideas on how we get to this person?
I didn't do a lot of research, but when I looked at the video, it looks like I think he won it for his state at first, and then there's like some kind of national committee. You know, I won a Teacher of the Year award too back in my day for I know a little bit how these things work, man, you know, but Shout out to Christian. We got some champions here in the BMEA family, but it's not an exact science, I'm sure, but obviously I think he was doing his thing at the local level, at the school level. They probably say, hey man, you should represent, this state teacher of the year. He probably submitted a video or something, got observed, and then they put him on a national level, and he probably outshined there too. That's my thought.
I think you're right, Chris. But
yeah, that's what Chris said.
With so many teachers in the field, shout out to that. That's a heck of an accomplishment. I do have one last question about that before we move on. Like when you see videos like that and they show the little clips of him in the room, like, teaching, like we all know people who do that, right? I just and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the teacher of the year. I just like, there's so many great teachers and we just want to make sure, we're saying that. And, it's more than just one, right? We all know somebody who is doing the great things over time consistently. And so shout out to those folks, all of them.
And it's just a point to like, obviously still not enough black male educators, but brother like him, brother like Chris, brother like Christian, we got these teachers a year. If we get more of these teachers in the schools, I think you're going to get the fruits of your labor, right? Like you're going to see the results. And also, I just saw recently, South Carolina Teacher of the Year is a black man as well. So shouts out to him. We'll bring him up next time, but I just saw that today. So yeah, man, to your point, Jerry, there are a lot of great teachers, and I think that like obviously we don't do this work for the recognition, but it's good. I'm glad that he was able to get recognized and shine a light on black male educators.
And real quick,
and you and I got work to do apparently.
Hey, man, it's all good. We're what is it called?
Role players. That's what
it's yeah. I'm cool with that. I was gonna say though, I really appreciate what the kids said real quick. I think that is evidence of like the relationships first stance, really being enthusiastic and sincere about your content, like being a professional about it. I mean, we're gonna talk about some of this stuff later on. I think that's super, super important for when you have a classroom and you're influencing and you're leading young people. But I would love to see that more. I would love to see us promote and have even like commercials, you know what I'm saying? Stuff about what teachers are doing in the classroom, just to really put some respect on our name. I really think that's important. So
the biggest lesson I learned was to confront the uncomfortable.
Yes, man. Look at that.
We're supposed, the biggest lesson I learned was to confront the uncomfortable.
Yeah, let's go. Let's move on. My bad.
Chris, close us out, Chris.
I was just gonna say, I think what it is, man, for me, when I see whether it's a man or a woman, but especially when I see a black male, doing their thing in the classroom, I find it inspirational. It's just like, like kind of like I might say, like, man, that sounds like me, or you may, it's just an encouragement. So like, yeah, they picked one, but I think he represents, all great teachers who can have that impact that we saw in those students, what they were saying. So that's what I think about. And then last thing I'll say is, we did a session today. We played the Key and Peele Teacher Center video clip. I don't know if y'all seen that, but it was kind of funny. And, kind of reminded me of that comment I just made. We need to be highlights of teacher moves and stuff like that. But, that was a good clip. I should have had that queued up. We probably got copyright infringement on YouTube, but, that was a good reminder, though, because it's kind of just show like, yeah, like, man, it's teachers out here doing their thing. And we should be recognizing that in our world.
Hey, are you referring to that draft, the teacher draft they did?
Yeah, that was part of it. It was it was a whole segment.
Okay. It's close.
Okay. So just moving into the question of the day, man. Like today, we're talking about like who's to blame for student outcomes right now, specifically for Black children in education. Like, which factors have the greatest influence on student achievement, fellas? Like, what do you think they are? And then the secondary question, I'm gonna throw it out there now, but I'll follow up a little later. Which factor do you think is most important if you got a couple of them? So I'm gonna throw it to you, Mike. First question.
Okay, so I think I'm gonna speak from personal experience first. I would say that like I would bank 90% of my success academically on my parents, just because they put me in a position to be successful early on, and they were the reason behind my success. I wasn't really inspired by too many of my teachers, although shouts out to some of them who did well, And there are teachers who I do remember, but I would say like I was already on my track by the time I ran into him. So I would just say like the structures I had at home with my parents were the keys to my success. Now, I also believe that teacher quality is probably the number one thing in terms of like how well schools do. The like socioeconomic status like aside, right? Because I also think like, you know, there are factors that impact student achievement that are outside of just the parents, what the parents do, outside of what just the teacher does. So if it's just parents and teachers, I do think teacher quality is important because it can overcompensate for things that may be lacking at home, right? The right teacher can really overcompensate on some things, at least with the success in that classroom. I'm pass it to Jerry though.
I was trying to wait. I was gonna go last, but you know, I think it's I agree with Mike on the second part about teacher quality, but not necessarily like putting the blame on teachers, right? I think that there are a lot of systems that exist within education that don't necessarily lend itself to achieving at a high level consistently, right? And some of that is just even the word overcompensate. Like great teachers can overcompensate for other things. Like great teachers, I mean, that is helpful if they can overcompensate, but it's not really sustainable, right? If people are always constantly overcompensating, right? And so it should be okay in a school because it's okay in every other workplace to have like middle of the road people, right? But we can't afford that in our schools, right? And so like whatever the reason is that we can't afford that in our school, that's what I blame. So I don't know. That's a long answer, but that's what I blame.
I don't know if this is the space, but I got to hear more about that middle of the road thing later on. Chris, what you think?
Well, I think I'll let Jerry explain that later. I think I get what he's saying, but anything is just realistic too, you know. But back to your question though, like on, you know, what factors have the greatest influence on student achievement? Man, it's tough to name one. You know, I had parents that were definitely pushing me, so they definitely had a positive impact on me, and I had some teachers that were good as well. But I think, you know, this is kind of general, but I think it's just about, you know, motivation and not necessarily intrinsic, like, you know, what you come to the school with. But I think a teacher and administrator's ability to inspire, to show people, like expose students to exposure, maybe even the word I want to use, you know, like exposing them to what's possible for themselves, showing them an example. I think those things like really propelled me like so much. I mean, of course I had a strong foundation. I can never like, you know, discount that. But there was exposure that I got that helped me do things that my parents may have aspired for me to do, but they didn't necessarily know how to get me there on their own. You feel what I'm saying? Like my parents didn't go to college, and there's other things I've gotten into that I couldn't necessarily go to them to know the steps. But because they put me in certain environments, I was able to get exposed and inspired and see a vision, you know, of myself. So for me, when young people come through school doors, I feel like that's like a canvas to like paint a picture to really expose them and inspire them. And I think that is like the gateway that can overcome, like it can't overcome everything, but it can overcome a lot of the circumstances that a child may come from, whether it's positive or negative, what we expose, and can motivate kids to want to inspire too.
Ooh, super poetic. Canvas.
Get in my bag sometimes.
Because I think you're right, absolutely right, Chris. And this idea of like transformative people in your life, right? That you come across as you go through school. The reality is everybody's not transformative, right? And so how many people over the course of your life would you consider transformative people, right? And so like you're lucky to run into those people, right? Mm-hmm. But if you don't run into those people, or if you're never exposed to those people over your K-12 life, like are we just supposed to accept that your schooling experience sucks? Or like can it be in the middle of the road at least versus like you see what I'm saying?
Middle of the road.
So how do we raise the floor so it's in the middle of the road?
Well,
at the very least.
I feel you on that. If you don't come in contact with this transformational person, does that mean that your learning experience is going to be trash? Like, nah, I don't think so. I do think some of the things that I've been thinking about is, at least as it pertains to teacher quality, along with attitude towards student learning, right? Creating this healthy learning environment and research-based instructional practices. And then finally, like analyzing student work as a function of your practice. Like, I think those things are important, right? I would say this relationship stance where you're like really able to demonstrate a sense of security in your own self, no matter which type of kid you're in front of, right? Then really be able to invite students into realness. Like, how do you have real conversations about everything, but not, what's appropriate? So, I mean, definitely about like conflict, but just super simple. Like, yo, I had this whatever for lunch and it was terrible. How do you just engage in different conversations with kids and just invite them into something? Because I think that's what our kids are also looking for, right? But then also, lastly, how do you demonstrate this? Like, I'm calling it right now, I don't know what to call it, developing security. I think it's really impactful when you can talk to young people about some of the choices you've made in your life where you failed backwards. And because of that, you're learning from them. And that is something that's helping you become a better person. Our kids need to see, I think, your story kind of, and how you're becoming this person. And I don't know necessarily how to describe that all the way outside of developing security. So I think that's the baseline. I'm not looking for you to be this transformational person all the way, but I am looking for you to be relatable, to be real, and to demonstrate some type of developing security in yourself, because that's what students need to see as a model for not just to be this academic brain, but to be this well-developed human. You feel me? That's what I'm thinking about.
I mean, I hear that, what you're saying, Brandon. And I'm thinking about what I also said, and I'm thinking about the question. I feel like we real fluffy with this right now, right? Like, it feels good, but your question was around student achievement. So, like, how does it connect from, being able to have a real talk or have like this, exposure? And maybe this is, maybe we need to define what student achievement is, but I'm just trying to make that connection between you feeling well, but then you're also able to, and not just the 1 or 2, but like in large percentages, get students to understand and be able to, do grade level appropriate work and beyond. Like how do we bridge that gap? Because I think we, a lot of times we can create that vibe, but it doesn't always translate to student achievement. So like, what's that key lever then that allows a teacher to be transformative with the academics,
Yeah, I'll answer the question real quick. I think it's not an order, but it's parents, teachers, and students themselves at a certain age. I think parents definitely have to be, if not experts, right? They don't have to be experts, but they need to be present. You need to be involved, and you have to orient your children in a certain direction. Like Mike said, teacher quality. I named 4 things, so I think those are important. And then finally, I think it does come down to the child being very intentional about what they want their life outcomes to be. But I think you need guidance in order to get there.
What about a young kid though? I mean, I think we talk. I don't know if you've got a high schooler in mind, but like a 3rd, 4th grader, like they don't. You know what I mean? Like I don't know.
Yeah, I said at an appropriate age. So for obviously the K-5 babies, it's definitely parents and teachers for sure.
Well, but sure. I'll say this, and I try to be as conscious as I can. Like, it's also school leaders, right? Like, we say teachers a lot.
Sure.
But there's like, there are these roles in schools for a reason, right? And I'm of the belief that if everybody's fulfilling their role as best as they can, you're gonna have a good school, right? And so what role does the leader play in that too, right? And so just like any other organization, leaders are responsible for, at the end of the day, for everything, right? And so if it is achievement important to you, right? And how is it so important to you that you're not going to let a teacher show up halfway every day, right? My students' futures are that important. I can't keep letting you do this, right? Is that conversation happening from a leader, right? So like, it's not just teachers. It's everybody involved in that building caring about the same things. And hopefully one of those things is achievement.
I think one thing that's coming up for me is like, I think even with the teacher of the year, I think along with confronting like the uncomfortable, I think one of the students said it's relatable. So I think it's really important to make your content common, like super normal. So, you know, I think about some of the environmental issues that we experience, like in Detroit. There's this huge thing about air quality and water quality. In the state, there's a lawsuit against the state by this environmental stewardess group, the Sierra Club in Southwest Detroit, because 48217 is the most polluted zip code in the state. And you can talk so much about chemistry, about the impact of health, medicine, what it means to be an environmental steward. There's so much stuff, so much ELA, all that can go into that particular topic. But I think the basic project-based learning, if teachers can situate learning in problem or practice, in problem or place, and then guide them to learn some of those very specific, why might a bond between a nitrogen and an oxygen or a hydrogen and a fluorine be stronger? You understand what I'm saying? And then help them understand that if you can understand that would lead you to maybe potentially testing air quality or water quality, something along those lines. You might create a spark in a child, but you have to make it very common for them. And I think that's what teachers need to be able to do in the classroom. For parents, I think parents need to be able to say to their kid, I love you, and you got to make a choice on what you're going to do. I don't make that choice for you, but I am going to guide you and lead you in a way to make a choice, because you need to be a contributing human being just to the community, and you need to have like certain expectations for yourself. So I think those are the two roles that parents and teachers, or educators in general, leaders and just classroom teachers, play in this thing. I know we've been here for a while, but I felt the need to say that.
Anything rise up for you, Payne?
No, you guys. So a lot of the thoughts have been rising, and they start to shift as the conversation shifts. But originally, what I was going to say was, one thing I think about often is like how many dreams or like school dreams get shattered in like kindergarten and first grade. Like how many kids show up to school loving the idea of learning and loving like, excited to learn, excited to, you know what I mean? Because these children are coming into the world and like they're sponges. They're trying to learn. They want to know more. And then they get into this, and sometimes good, sometimes bad. They get into this space and something shifts or something dies. And I've seen it, you know what I'm saying? And it's heartbreaking. So now I kind of, my mind start to lean more on the teacher in terms of student achievement, only in the sense of like, if school is the place in which kids are focusing most of their learning, then the administration and the teacher's job is to be that, like, continue to create those systems and those culture and that culture of like wanting to learn and more. And I think to your point, Lane, about like, obviously if you make it relatable and relevant and things that like they'd be interested in, that keeps that going. And so most of that is on, I'll say a lot of that leans on the teacher. Now on the parent end, I do think like the child's self-confidence, like their self-determination, like a lot of the things like still have to be modeled, like not only modeled, but practice at home. Yeah. Because oftentimes kids don't, if there's so much learning about how to be a human being that's done at home and in school, right? But you don't just turn it off, right? So a kid doesn't just come to school, follow directions, struggle through, like learn to struggle, do productive struggle, learn to critically think, and then go home and just turn it off. Or if they are, that's not a good thing, because that's how you operate as a person if you are that type of person. And so there has to be structures at home. And I mean, I don't know how we support parents outside of like that just being passed down. on like how you raise a child to be, self-efficient or have self-efficacy, and also like really just like the confidence to be able to like take on any challenge. Because a lot of our kids lose confidence early on, and then they just are averted to wanting to like learn and experience change or experience like difficult tasks. And the reason why I say, and just last point, and it shows up more than just in academics, it shows up in sports too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's not like, math can be boring, and their classes can be improved. But I've also seen kids and things that they love to do quit on it because of like learned behaviors, right? And that isn't just something you get at school, something that's done at home as well. Like we all as a village are raising our children around like morals and principles, and those principles are important to like student success, not just the content in the arithmetic. It's the like who you are and how you are is going to determine your success. Right, not how much you've learned. I mean, which is good, but like once you learn it and you're able to learn it and you're able to strive through it, you'll be fine in any situation.
Yeah, that's good stuff, y'all. So like taking it like zeroing in on the actual classroom and like the environment there. So thinking about like, like this concept of an orderly classroom, like, do you think, is it wrong for teachers to like demand that, or should that be a number one focus? I've heard some research that says like that's the number one thing that impacts learning is like just the environment and the order. And then also like I guess a little side note to that is like, what if you encounter students that don't seem to care to learn, or they don't seem that they're that interested in getting with the program that you're trying to teach? Like what role and what should the action of the teacher be in that case? And like how do you rank an orderly classroom when it comes to student achievement?
Can I go first? Y'all
right ahead, yeah.
All right. So, I think the definition of order, I don't know what the definition of orderly in this sense. I think that like when it comes to like classroom management being the number one thing for like creating a conducive environment for learning is what I like to call it. Orderly kind of seems like you're sitting still, it's quiet, like kids are listening, like that's compliance, and that's like culture killing. Like you just want kids to sit in there listening to you. That's not like how life is. And that's not how our children learn. Like our children learn through rap, our children learn through dance, our children learn through like experiences and doing things. So like I don't believe in like that type of order. Like sometimes it doesn't need to be quiet. It does need to be quiet. And that's something you learn. Like learn that there are times to talk and there are times not to talk. But what I think, and like when I think of like a conducive environment for learning, kids need to feel safe. Kids need to feel like they can be themselves. Kids need to feel like they can take chances and risk and not be hurt by it. And kids need to feel that you have control of the space, if that makes sense. So my kids can be moving around, walking, talking, like engaging with one another, getting up, using the bathroom, and they're coming back because we've created a culture of respect and of understanding. And like this community we have here, like everyone understands how it works, and that I don't play about how it works, but you are free to be yourselves in that space. That to me is number one important, but it's not an orderly classroom. And classroom management for a long time has been about like a power dynamic of how the teacher controls what kids can and cannot do. And that's not based off of respect. It's basically mostly off of fear. And you just can't operate like that, because there's going to be some kid that's going to be fearless and is going to push against, this system of oppression.
So I agree 135% that Mike just said. I think that, a lot of people do a lot of things to achieve this orderly classroom, right? And then, whatever success they feel like they're enjoying is really built off of oppressive things, right? So you take all of that stuff out, kids don't know who they are, and is the success still there, right? And so to Mike's point, like authentically building those relationships with your kids, engaging them with content that is relevant to them, relatable to them, allowing them to have that space in their room to kind of operate with autonomy, fully knowing that at the end of the day, you're the leader of this partnership, right? That is an environment that is conducive to learning. And I do think if people can set those environments up, you're going to see that achievement. I think to your point, Lane, about that security, developing security, I hear like confidence, self-confidence in that. And I do think that sometimes we have teachers in rooms that don't have enough self-confidence to achieve what we just described, right? And so they lean on that stuff and they insert that into their classroom as a way to make things easier for them, to make it orderly. But they're not putting that same energy into developing their practice, right? Instructional practice. And then we're in these messes. And so I agree 100% with what Mike said, but that takes, very self-aware, very self-confident people, I think.
One thing I'm gonna let y'all go. I'm sorry. To Jerry's point, your instructional practices, the strength of instructional practices is also classroom management. So how good you are at doing your job and teaching them the content is a part of the classroom management. Because, and I don't need to answer, I think you guys get it, but I'm gonna let y'all talk. I just want to add.
Yeah. Showing up in the classroom with no plan. I feel you. No. My bad. I don't mean to trigger anybody. So I'm just saying, I thought the first thing, what do you mean by orderly? I love how you brought that up, Mike. What's your definition? I think that's great. If we're talking about no talking and no sitting, I think that could be traumatic. And our kids learn just like anybody else's kids do. And that's through social interactions. You know what I'm saying? Like interacting with the content, interacting with their peers. That should take place in the classroom, in my opinion. I think teachers ought to establish a culture of respect. But I think that's through modeling respect. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that's through like command and demand, authoritative or punitive interactions, et cetera. You know what I mean? And then I think, just maintaining that relationship's first stance is really important. Orderly classroom, man, that's like crazy to a degree, but I do think it's really important, again, that if you're saying to your kids, if you gave them time to talk and engage and do a project or something like that, and you're asking for their attention, like, hey, I think your kids should respond and give you their attention, not because they're so afraid of you, but because they have regard for you as a person, because you've demonstrated regard for them as people. And they're like, yo, dog is going to give us something that's going to add to our capacity, and we value that. You understand what I'm saying? Like they're clear about, like, this is not wasting my time. They're clear about, this is adding to my life. They're clear about, this is going to lead to outcomes. So because of that, they respond. And everybody's not going to be on every day, but at least that's the foundation.
So, Brandon, I think we're all on the same page here. I don't know that we did anything to answer that question. What I do think we did, and that's the question of the day, who's to blame? I don't know that we answered that question tonight. What I do think we raised were approaches and things we can do as people in this work to achieve what we're trying to achieve, right? To get closer to what we're chasing, and not necessarily to figure out who to blame, right? And so I don't know if that was a part of the master plan, Lane, but I think that's what we accomplished tonight. I think we had a great conversation. Is there any last 10-second tidbit anybody wants to add before we close out?
Just man, when I think about teaching and building relationships, I think one of the most important things, not the important, but one of the most important things in life is just being a person of your word. And when you deal with children, like, the one thing they're going to pay attention to is like doing what you say you're going to do, right? On the good and the bad, whether it comes to like discipline and like redirection, or if it comes to like promises of good fortune and all those things. Like, and so teachers, when it comes to like figuring out the classroom management, they got to figure out like what is in their capacity to do and manage, and get creative when like how you're doing those things. It's more than 10 seconds, but I just want to say, like, the moral of the story is make sure that you are a man or woman of your word.
Chris, close us out. Everybody else talked. Go ahead, close us out, Chris.
Now, I think y'all hit it on the head. I think we can easily do a part 2 on this.
Yeah.
Because I still want to dig deeper to, like specific teacher actions. I think we talk a lot about the environment, but I think, so we can always dig deeper on the subject, because if it was an easy thing to describe, then our jobs would be a lot easier, right? Student achievement.
We wouldn't have talked about it for so long tonight, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's just one of them topics that we can definitely do just more in, and even looking at particular subjects or, grade levels, because it is challenging. But I think that I agree with everything that was pretty much said tonight around, setting that environment, building those relationships, that security and that trust you can provide. I think those are a lot of things. And also, we all have the ability to be that transformative person for somebody. It can just be a conversation. We just have to sometimes go beyond just the normal day-to-day to have that impact, but we all have that ability and potential to do so. So I think as educators, we got to keep that in mind, because one conversation or one affirmation from us can really change how someone views themselves and view their future. And I think that's one of the most powerful things that we have as educators.
He's been real poetic today. You hear this guy?
I think y'all just not listening.
No.
I'm on. Go do your reviews, man. Come on. Man.
Hey, no.
Hey, I was saying the same thing earlier, man.
Hey, we need all the viewers to go back to other episodes and let us know by the next show. Is Chris always been poetic? Or
that was a heat check. Yeah, that's a heat check. I don't want to care. I don't know. Chris been on fire. No.
Come on, man.
Snaps for Chris. Lane, again, just recap anything BMEA got going on.
Real quick, Principal Wellness PLC. This Saturday is our last session. Early Career Teachers Fellowship. Our last session is coming up in 2 weeks. We are going to have our Early Career Teachers Fellows cookout sometime in July, and be on the lookout. This is really far in advance. In August, we will be releasing new applications for our various fellowships, and we're looking forward to continuing to collaborate with educators, educated leaders across Detroit, the Metro Detroit area. And we're honored to be here. Love y'all, boys.
All right, we'll be back in 2 weeks. By then, we should be at the Eastern Conference Finals, so we'll be talking about that Miami-Milwaukee matchup. This is Lifting Our Voices, a BMEA podcast.
You are now listening
to the Black Male Educators Alliance podcast.
Lifting our voices.
Lifting our voices.